Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. John Kelly Profiler here, and welcome. Thanks for really checking us out today. We're really honored. You can see who's here. We got Dustin Ranck with us, private investigator, really knows his stuff, spent a lot of time in the street, and I really value his opinion, and I hope you do as well from the comments we've gotten from you guys over the years or so. You do value his knowledge and his comments. So anyway, what we're looking for today is we're looking for Melodee Buzzard. Where is Melodee? That's what we're looking for. I want to send our sadness and very concerned feelings out there to her family and friends. This is some pretty crazy stuff when you have to have a beautiful 9-year-old little girl completely disappear at this point. So we're looking for answers and we're looking for Melodee, whatever it takes. So Dustin, welcome. You wanna set the stage because I know you're familiar, one way or the other with that area up there. And I think the audience would like to hear it, and we'll get started.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on, John, and thanks
Oh, my
everybody
pleasure.
too. Yeah, it's great to see you guys again. And yeah, when got a first glimpse of their trajectory to Nebraska or wherever it was, the first thing that came to mind, because back in my tattoo days, I was on the road quite a bit. So I'm familiar with that area, California, Desert Southwest, Vegas for sure, When I'm looking at just giving that an overview, it's concerning to me on a couple of levels, mainly because we have a missing 9-year-old kid, right? Like it makes me wonder what's kind of happening there, because it's not just, it isn't just the child that's missing. Like we as we dig into the backgrounds here and we start looking around, we you can't discount past histories. It starts to paint potentially a picture of something going wrong. So did that happen? We don't know because we don't have all the pieces, but we have to look at that and be concerned with it for sure. I mean, that area out there, you've got that first leg between, LA, Lompoc area and Vegas. And I mean, gosh, that is a pretty desolate stretch, I mean, yeah, it's got a lot of traffic on it. There's a lot of traffic back and forth. It's a major interstate for sure, but there's access roads all over the place, and there's a vast desert out there. And then you get past Vegas into that southwestern Utah area, and it's kind of more of the same. It's, as I was looking at that trajectory, it's, yeah, if that's accurate, that detour off the interstate is concerning to me because there's just so much remote wilderness out there, whether it's desert or forest or a combination of high desert. I mean, gosh, you know, in light of a missing child, that becomes worrisome for sure.
Yeah, it's extremely worrisome. And what bothers me is when I'm looking at mom and I'm curious. I'm just curious, and based on the feedback we're getting from the news and from the allegations out there that mom really into these expensive wigs, right? And mom really, if you take a good look at her, Melody's mother was really dressed to the nines, and if I'm going to do a trip that long, I'm going to be dressed comfortably. I'm going to want to relax. I'm going to be in a car for a long time, you know. I mean, she's really dressed to the nines here. And, it looks like, expensive expensive clothing. I mean, maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm focused at, on these wigs. They're not cheap wigs. It seems to me like they cost a couple bucks. It's all kinds of expensive stuff. And then, we're getting this information, these allegations, that mom's broke, mom doesn't have any money, or mom's short on money, or credit went bad. She tried to rent a second credit or a second rent a car, and the credit card was not good, right? So you ask yourself, what's going on there? Where's this money gone? Um, it looks to us, without getting specific, that mom made a decent buck. You know, um, I think, at some point, I think I'm correct. She may have gone on disability or something. I'm not quite exactly sure on how that's worked out or whatever. But these things cost money. And, you know, if you're going to be obsessively shopping, and I'm not saying she was. I'm not saying she's, an obsessive spender or anything, but if she was, okay, I mean, that costs even more money. So, this whole case to me looks pretty strange because, we see uh, places and closing things where money has gone out. And we also see rental cars, which cost money. And then we see rental cars that can't be rented anymore because she doesn't have any money, or her credit card went bad, or whatever the story is there. And I'm just trying to soak all this in, like, you know, in the midst of a beautiful little missing 9-year-old girl. So you've got this dynamic, you've got this situation going on where you see, somebody uh, that is dressing well, seems to have good clothes, seems to have a couple bucks. She looks wonderful, when she's dressed up. I mean, there's no question about it. And then, you see this other side where, there's no money and there seems to be a problem with a credit card. And then you see these um, rented cars that have had license plates changed on them. Okay. And you just start to wonder about that. And then you add the wigs into this and everything. And two major dynamics I'm looking at is I'm looking at a missing, young, beautiful little girl, and I'm looking at money, have or have not, or kind of a little bit of both. But, something is going on here. There is an underlying, I believe, very sick tale that's underlying this whole dynamic. And I'm not quite sure what it is. Um, I know the information that's come out there, and there was some, kind of negative history with Melodee's father. How connected was Melodee's mom to her father's friends that all lived in that area out there, the family, whatever. I mean, there's just not a lot to be seen here.
Mhm.
I mean, we see some money being spent. We see some money problems. Okay. Um, and in the midst of it, again, we see this girl disappear, after all these miles. And we see, some nefarious action taking place as far as maneuvering license plates and wigs and, you know, things like that. Like, I mean, how many trips have you gone on where you got to change your license plate maybe 2 or 3 times and wear wigs, right? To go out and have a good trip and have a good time, right? So what kind of trip is that? I mean, it boggles the mind, but I also think that we're gonna have more be revealed very soon. What do you see? I mean, I don't even know if I'm explaining it right. What do you see?
No, you're calling it, John. I mean, like if we just applied the circumstances to any case, right? And there's certainly plenty of those. Anytime you've got evasive behaviors, that's concerning, especially when you add into the mix that somebody is missing, especially a child. Um, because a 9-year-old isn't they don't have bank accounts and tools and connections and stuff like that the way that adults do. So it is a different scenario. But if we just applied that, we could look at the evasion part of this as as a way to like stay off the radar, right? Like I've got something planned, I'm up to something nefarious. Or you could even look at it through the lens of protection, of getting somebody away from their environment and don't want people to know where they are for their safety. And I think that's an important thing to bring out because we don't have all the
Good
facts.
point. Good point. We don't have all
And
the facts.
yeah, and we don't know, like you said, like there's some stuff in that background of these players, and I'm just going to say players
Mhm.
here that raise makes me intensely concerned because you'd be a fool to ignore it, right? But you could see those evasion behaviors as getting a child away from those environments very easily. But like you said, like barring that, we still have a missing child. So the only other thing left isn't anything good. You know what I mean? You don't have much options after, like, hey, I'm trying to get my kid or a loved one somewhere safe. After that, they're missing, and there's really not a lot of good reasons why they would be. And that's just, and then you look at the environment, you look at the travel route, and that becomes it creates some red flags. Again, we don't have all the pieces, but if we're just looking at it, with the 30,000-foot view, it's the most polite way to say it is just extremely concerning.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why we put the $5,000 reward out there. And again, I want to say it is $5,000 to see to get to have Melodee Buzzard. I want to see her alive and flourishing, but I also am a realist. I've been doing this for a long time, and you know, I don't like the way this feels. I don't like the way this looks. I don't like the way this smells. And I gotta be totally honest, we will pay the $5,000, whether Melodee is alive or God forbid something's happened to her and she's not, and somebody found her remains or something. We would still be more than happy to pay the $5,000 just to have her and have a bit of you know shall I say spirituality in some kind of funeral or something. I mean, we would, and I'm not saying she's dead, but I just want to be clear on the $5,000 because I don't think a lot of people understand it. They think $5,000, that she has to be found alive and then somebody has to be arrested and found guilty in a court of law. That's not right. That's not what we're saying. We're saying we'll give you $5,000. We just want to see the girl. We want the girl. We want to see proof that it is the girl. Okay, that's what we want. We want proof it's Melodee. Okay, and we'll give you the $5,000. That's what our focus is. That's what our focus is. And we're doing this because you brought out that area and how big it is and whatever. And what I'm just saying is, maybe there's somebody out there that's got some time on their hands that lives around that area. Maybe they'd go out and look around a little bit, search a little bit, all the folks in that area, if they'd like to search and check it out and, see what they could find out there. Because if they could find Melodee alive or not, I mean, we will still pay the $5,000. We want Melodee to be able to come home. She has a lot of family that's very interested in her, and I've worked with many families over the years, and the worst thing in the world is not knowing what's happened to the child. That's the worst thing in the world, for families. I mean, it's there's no question about it. Not knowing, you know. Um, what else do you see? Do you see anything else that, we think is important at this time? We're going to stay on top of this. We're going to keep following this, but do you see anything else that's important?
Well, yeah, I do, but what we like we talked before the show, we don't want to get into too many specifics right now because we're still putting the pieces together and
Yeah, we don't want to get way into the weeds, right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. We're looking at it, we're looking at all the angles, and I would think that law enforcement would be looking at things, through the rental car companies, any kind of credit card receipts. Was she traveling strictly on cash? Because as you know, it's this, renting a car is no different than a hotel, right? Like you got to reserve it with a card because I need to have some collateral to tap it, but you can still pay for it in cash. So we don't know if this entire trip was done on the cash flow with a deposit on a card or just what. Like there's some unanswered questions there, but that's stuff that law enforcement would certainly have access to or be able to get access to. And I'm sure they're looking at that because these guys are, like they're pretty skilled at tracking this type of stuff down. They have entire departments for it. So hopefully that, they're uncovering stuff. We just don't have a lot of, other than public records and requests that we've been pulling, we're going to have to wait to see how this unfolds a little bit more. It's mostly that, the evasive behavior really concerns me and the non-cooperation, like I said, and it's important for people to remember, you know, you what we're looking at in its totality right now could be two different scenarios completely. So I just want to make sure that
Correct.
is
That's
transparent.
an excellent point. And they've arrested Ashley Buzzard, the mother, right?
Yep.
Excuse me, and they're not being too specific on what exactly they arrested her for. There's not a lot of information on that. They're keeping it pretty close to the vest, which I I can understand. I certainly agree with law enforcement on that. The one thing I'm thinking about that's a possibility is this could be an older situation. This could have been years ago where she could have been involved in supposedly hampering somebody or keeping somebody, against their will in some way, shape, or form. Again, these are the allegations that are coming out from different news stations. Certainly, we have no proof to believe that. And certainly, I have to say that, she is totally innocent of any charges until proven guilty in a court of law. I need to say that uh, for myself, and, for her at this point, because, so much has gone up. But is there a statute of limitations, that they're running up against, and this could be older. This could be older, and, there could be some history here in, some nefarious history we don't know about, and the statute of limitations hasn't run out on it yet, so they're trying to make a case on it. That's a very possible dynamic as well. We're just gonna have to wait and see here, and yeah, we'll get into the weeds. We'll get into the weeds deeper as we see the progress and what else is revealed here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything you want to say before we break?
I don't think so, John. Just let's all keep that young girl in our prayers, and hope
Absolutely.
okay. And we've got a lot of information. We're crunching all of us right now and trying to get a better beat on this and keeping our eyes on the
Mhm.
data. So, until we can get some more pieces or some new developments happen, it's I'm glad that you brought up that recent charge because that's a pretty serious one when you dig into the California Penal Code. So you're right, it could be something that the statute hasn't run out on. It could be something new. It could be a piece of leverage. We just don't know because law enforcement isn't saying. But when you start to add the layers in, I got a lot of concern for that kid.
Absolutely. And, I guess more will be revealed. My friend, thank you so much again. So honored to have you and your expertise. And, until we talk again, which shouldn't be too far away, you have a wonderful day and take care of yourself out there. And to the audience, all you guys that have been watching, have a wonderful day out there. Stay safe, stay on your toes. Most importantly, be careful and God bless until we talk again. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, John. Thanks a lot to your audience as well. I appreciate all you guys.
Thank you so much, Dustin.
Yeah.